All right. I think we're going to start getting started here. I'm Gabriel Lopez. I host the Bay Area local music show Vinelands on KEXP 92.7 and online at kexp.org. Thank you so much to Minnesota Street Project and everybody. I'm here with TOKiMONSTA.
Hi, everyone.
Give her up. We're talking records. We're talking music. Maybe we should just let this first one go. You all should know it.
I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no job, had second hands. Moms bounced on old men. So then we moved to Shallon Land. A young youth, you're rocking the go-to. Low goose, only way I begin to G-York was drug loot. And let's start it like this, son. Rolling with this one and that one. Pulling out
That's Wu-Tang Clan, Cream. You know the track. First question, who's your favorite Wu-Tang member? Hot question, hot tip. Let's start crazy. Start crazy.
I think it's like evolved over the years, but I think Raekwon
changes, right?
Yeah, it does change. And they're like, they're like superheroes. They all have like different powers.
Yeah.
But I think I always had a soft spot for Raekwon.
Raekwon the Chef. Incredible.
You know what I'm saying? Some Cuban links, but then, everyone offers something. Ghostface offers something different. The reason why I wanted to play that track is it's a really meta thing, right? Because we're playing this hip hop track that's also sampling another record. But when I first started making beats, I wanted to be the RZA. Not like literally, but
No.
For me, Wu-Tang is like my favorite band that exists, and there was something about discovering this style of like East Coast hip hop music that really resonated with me, and also the way that the choices of samples that the RZA would make. And, first level customizable cell phone, that was my ringtone, back in the day. And
The razor was beeping. You're like, Cash does roll everything
I
around.
know. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's my phone. Subtly showing off. Growing up as a kid, you were just exposed to music that was on the radio. And being on the West Coast, you mostly heard West Coast hip hop, So there was like Tupac or anything, Ice Cube, etc., And I discovered Wu-Tang through Napster.
Hell yeah.
Like first gen,
Hell yeah.
And I was like, whoa, what's this? Fire. I had no context. I didn't know if they're big. It was just someone sent me like some download link and I was like, okay, cool. Let's go for it. And it's really through discovering my love for hip hop that I started going backwards and started collecting records. And initially I only collected records. I mostly only collect records for samples, and this is one of very few modern-ish records that I have that I just like to listen to.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think something about you mentioning the RZA sampling and something in your music as well is RZA's so good at texture on the sample. Like he's not trying to get the cleanest rip of something. It's like, yeah, it's got pops on it, or it's actually like messed up, and like when you get it digitized, it's like, oh, the encoding's wrong. I think something that's really beautiful to like sample as it is and not try to clean it up.
Exactly. That's the grit that vinyl offers, right? Is the imperfections. It's not digital. There's always going to be the way that it's pressed, maybe the way it's warped. All these things add to a really unique characteristic to each song that's on these records.
Absolutely. Where do you want to go next? Let's go. We're going back in time.
So we're going to go weird.
Let's go weird. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I do not listen to this album all the time. But what I really love is the Sun Ra as an artist. And, he was a big proponent of like Afrofuturism, all these things. And even though he is considered a jazz musician, this specific album called Strange Strings was more of like a study, and it's more of a collage. What he did is he gave his orchestra random instruments that they had never played before, like the koto or like a bandera, and weird metallic objects just to make sounds. And what he would do is prompt them when to play. And he called this a study of ignorance. And I kind of love that. Like this is not supposed to be smart. It's meant to be just experimental and free flowing. And it's a reminder that we can do that when we make music too. Music doesn't have to be super serious. And I'm sure people have intellectualized this album up the wazoo, but he called it a study of ignorance, which means like go dumb, you know? And I know we know in the Bay
It's a
that
great
like
place to do that.
yeah, I know, exactly, right? For me as an artist, or if you're around a lot of, other musicians, it can be very serious and people can take it so far. And in reality, musicians are just having fun and they want to try things out. Sun Ra's a good example of that, just to experiment and just do what feels okay. And if no one gets it, that's fine. You got to express yourself, and maybe there's a few people that will get it.
Absolutely. In your own practice, how do you install like having fun in that way? Like how do you have fun in the studio?
I think going in with no intentions, like I don't go in being like, I want to have fun, or I want to go in and be like, I want to make an intellectual banger. It's just sit down and feel creative. And a lot of that can be inspired by watching a film, going to events like this, seeing people, hearing people's stories, and then just making music that feels good. And at the point that the process is no longer enjoyable, then you're not having fun anymore.
Right.
And usually I just try to walk away.
Yellow Magic Orchestra. Tell me a little bit about Yellow Magic Orchestra.
I love them. I think the West had Kraftwerk and the East had, YMO. And well, YMO is inspired by Kraftwerk, but in a closer generation, right? And they were. I aspire to be an artist that can model my career after like things that they've done, because they're very forward thinking, but that's also like a bop. Like how fun was that song,
Yeah.
right? All the individual members have also gone on to do really incredible things. Ryuichi Sakamoto was a really good friend of mine, and I met him because he messaged me on MySpace.
So sorry, you got a MySpace message from Ryuichi Sakamoto?
Yeah,
That's the sickest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and then so my other friend, I have a friend who's actually he was a rapper based in the Bay, Shingo too. He was like, "Oh, do you know that Ryuichi Sakamoto just sent you a message on MySpace?" I was like, "The fuck?" I was like, "Okay." And but that spoke to just staying, even though you're a legend, you're still excited about new music, And at that time, that was me, and I'm still that person. I DM people all the time, be like, "Man, your beats are fire," I was able to build this rapport and also just talk to him about, he makes extremely experimental electronic music. Then he does scores like The Last Emperor. He did this score for like The Revenant.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, a more example of like the more experimental electronic stuff. And then there's these like techno pop like jams from like the 70s and 80s. Also, their music videos, which I highly recommend if you go at home, they're so cool. They have one where it's like two of the guys and it's a pong ball that's going back and forth. And this is like pre-internet, pre-computer. So it's all done manually. I just really love them. I like what they stand for. I love that they're serious and not serious at the same time. And they're always willing to try something new. And I aspire to do the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they, again, kind of going from that last theme of fun, you can tell like just in their synergy, they have like very obvious fun together playing.
Exactly.
Which is really beautiful to hear. All right, let's go to another record. It's hard to go out for YMO.
So this record is actually a soundtrack for a movie from the 70s called 벼들의 고향, so My Hometown of the Stars. This is a record that I found at home. For some backstory, my dad passed away when I was really young, like 1 or 2. So I don't really know very much about him, but he did leave behind a lot of really cool records. And my mom has no interest whatsoever in music, so I assume it probably came from this guy. And it's cool to kind of learn more about myself through his taste in music. So I actually have a few records from that collection, and this is an excellent example.
Have you done any like research into that track, into the record?
So, this is a track or this album I just found at home. And I did some backwards research on the film. So it's a little depressing. It's about a heartbroken woman who then starts a relationship with a much older man who becomes like enveloped in jealousy and rage, and eventually she kills herself.
Oh,
Very
kind of a bummer.
Korean, cinema. So very tragic. And that's why the juxtaposition of this kind of groovy, funky soundtrack really lends itself. This record has so many excellent moments, and it's a soundtrack. It wasn't really meant to be listened to it on its own, but it is such a tastefully done soundtrack, and also really, really cool. I also do some composing for film too.
Okay.
What I find interesting, and I thought about this recently with this record, is modern day film scoring wouldn't have so many like solos because it's too busy. So if you're trying to put music to film and there's these solos, you can't let the scene breathe. But in this soundtrack, it's really about the music.
Right.
And that's why I think it's able to stand on its own and be listened to out of context. I think for a while I didn't even know it was a soundtrack. I would just listen to it.
Totally. That sounds just like an instrumental bop. That just sounds so fun.
It's a really precious record because, the context in terms of my father, but also I always wanted to see if I could sample it. But sometimes the tracks are so precious, I just don't want to fuck it up, basically, So it has yet to be touched in that way, but forever just a part of me in shaping who I am as an artist.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Beyond the outside world swung left to right. Within ourselves the sun saw the night. Just bound by blue ethereality. Drifting out to my dream free.
So what track was that?
Love Without Sound. So White Noise, Electric Storm. So one of the key members, they only made one album. Key members is Delia Derbyshire. So she is very iconic. One of the first women to champion synthesizers and electronic music. Was never given a lot of credit. For example, she made the Doctor Who theme, but some dude took all the credit,
Hate to see it.
Yeah. If you watch, there's like a BBC documentary on how it was made, and you can tell she's just like, not. She's like, I made that. And I think she had already made that soundtrack by the time this came out, but she really mastered sound design, a lot of tape editing, really progressive stuff. And so you can hear all the cool rhythmic components, but also the texture and just the randomness of just like, I'm going to put this spooky sound in there. And I love that. I love the randomness, but the context given and the fact that she was able to lend herself in a very technical way. And even nowadays, I'm kind of like in hip hop and electronic music. There's still not a lot of there aren't a lot of women before me. And there's a whole new generation of really talented, just like non-male people making music. So I didn't have a lot of inspiration, but she was someone I really looked up to. And, that I think this record is from the early 70s maybe, or late 60s.
Which you mentioned having to create these soundscapes with tape editing of how material that is, right? You have to cut tape and tape it together, and something about that process is really just stands out in how this comes together in the record.
Yeah, my ADHD could never, but the fact, that's where records are beautiful, right? Like I might not be able to cut tape together, but I can reference something that has been made in a really respectful way. And I really love the art of sampling for music. I clear all my samples, and I love paying tribute to the people I also sample. And because they did the hard work, right? Like I don't have to do that because I could use this sample if I can clear it. But it takes you back, and you're like, nothing can sound like that today unless you're going to go and try to actually make it. So
right, you have to have an analog setup. You have to decide and then in the way you talked about not going in with intention, to make that now, you would have to go in with the intention of
So
making
much
that.
intention, yeah. And that's where, we live in this wonderful state where I think music has been really democratized because any person has the ability to make music. One of the things about this era is like, can you imagine how much it cost to just get tape, to get this equipment? There was no digital recording, so you also had to record all your stems, like all your layers on tape, and then merge the tape together because you only have a 6-track, And I really admire the thoughtfulness that had to go because you knew you only had that much tape.
Yeah, it's interesting to play within limitations.
Yeah.
Do you set those up for yourself? Do you ever have limitations of like, I'm only going to do something, I don't know, and I'm only going to use this software, this synth, or this piece of hardware?
Yeah, for people who love to make music, there's also the side where you like to collect music gear and you just have 30 cents. Are you really making music with any of it? And I'll give an example. I had like a modular synth. I got real nerdy and started getting all these little modules. I never really made music with it though. It ended up being more just to create a lot of sounds. And at this point now, I try to have a palette that I use. And as TOKiMONSTA, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that I have these sounds that I like to pull from, and how can I bring about more creativity with myself with these limited tools. But I also like a lot of things. So sometimes I feel I want to go beyond my palette, and then I'll notice that the music sounds very different than maybe what I intended. So limitations are good, but also experimenting is also good.
내 마음 흔들려 내 마음 흔들려 내 마음 나도 모르겠네 모르겠네
So this is Isuni. So this is also a record I found at home. And I've done some backward research on her since I first found this record, and she's biracial. She grew up in Gyeonggi-do, like a province in Korea in the 50s. So she's probably post-American, occupation of Korea. So she's a result of that. And she faced a lot of discrimination being biracial, being Black and Korean in Korea. She ended up being, I think she's referred to as the Queen of Soul in Korea, and it's pretty cool. She has some move.
Cover.
I'm saying, and she brings a lot of authenticity because there's so much culture to be pulled in from so many sides. It's cool to see an example of that in a country where their association with a lot of Western music was through occupation. And yet she still prevailed and made incredible music. This is all basically funk and disco, which also informs some of the music that I make. Because I love funk, I love soul, I also like a little dancey dance. So this is one of my most treasured records. I'm playing all my favorite, most treasured records, by the way.
It's beautiful. I love how fun it is and free, and it's interesting to think about disco when it goes international.
Yeah.
How when it comes back sort of to America where it starts, it's there's the tinges that come, you have Thai disco, then you have Japanese disco and city pop, and it's very unfortunately it is framed through that context of occupation of how that culture transfers, but this is a very beautiful snapshot of ways in which it's liberatory as well.
Yeah. When we look at the history of, when one culture goes and then, takes a little space in another place, obviously it's not always under the best pretenses, but we do have these merging of cultures where, it's the Americans were in Korea. Yeah, that was kind of weird. But when you start to adopt this music, the local Koreans, it's because they were still vibing with it, you know? So you get this synergy and this exploration of this genre through the lens of someone from another country. And that lens, it makes cool music.
We got time for one more record. Are we ending on, you said we're ending on a banger?
Yeah.
Okay. As if, everyone has been great.
This one is from a Bay Area people.
track's that?
So I've been watching you. I think really notably sampled by Hieroglyphics, and same key, like just drums and really fire raps. This is also a record I found at home.
Whoa.
So I didn't dig for this. This is like also, dad collection, and it's really good. So you had really good day. Again, for me, records are a statement of history or statement of things that will outlast things or just improve with age. My records are filthy. Sorry that you've been having to clean them, but that's how long they've been around. And I learned so much about myself through the records I pick up, whether they're for samples, you just hear a loop that you like or a drum break, versus discovering more about myself through records that I found at home. And, my mom had like ABBA records or something, ABBA's also fire. But, this speaks to who I am as a person from a person I've never met.
Right.
And it's cool to be able to have this as kind of an origin story for half of who I am that I don't really know anything about. And when I listen to this record and the ones I've played that are from my family's collection, it informs who I am and why I'm here. Because sometimes I will have imposter syndrome and be like, why am I a musician? Why do people want to come and see me? Why do people want to listen to my music? What purpose do I serve? Am I meant to be doing this? And then I listen to these records and understand there is music somewhere in my roots and in my blood, and I am meant to be a musician. So yeah, thanks everyone.
That's really
That's it.
powerful. Thank you, TOKiMONSTA.